Well, hi, Jason. Welcome back to Leading and Serving Podcast.
Thanks, Chris. It's good to see you today.
It's good to see you, too.
Yeah. All well?
It is.
Yeah?
It is. Weather is breaking, and I am getting excited about getting outside.
Yeah. Should we hit pause and just take this on the
Yeah,
road?
can
And
you go outside and do this?
or we can just import the birds chirping in the background.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hopefully you're driving down the road and enjoying some of this nice weather.
Yeah.
So,
Well, man, we are really excited the progress that is taking place with the Uncommons Network and the mastermind groups, the peer-to-peer mentoring.
Yes.
People are jumping on board and loving it.
Yes.
So if you're still thinking about it, kind of sitting on the edge, you're like, I don't know, is it for me or is it not? Give us a call.
yeah.
There's a place
with
over
us.
at uncommonsnetwork.com. You can send us a message, and we would love to just talk through it and just see
Yeah.
if it's something that fits you. Because we don't want you to be in a place that doesn't fit.
For sure.
And if it's not for you, it's not for you.
And
that's
it's okay.
fine,
Yeah.
And so, that we want to help you find that perfect fit for you.
For sure.
And if this works, great, let's do it. We'd love to have you on board.
Yeah.
So, also jump over to leadingandserving.com. We'd love to hear from you for the podcast. Share this episode. Share a rating.
Still
a
looking for
review.
more interviews.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. If you've got a leader that you're like, oh, I want to hear their story. I've heard they have an amazing story. Let us know. We'd love to. We're always reaching out and finding those connections. So today we are we're dusting something off.
Yeah.
We're going to pull an interview out of the archives.
Wow, this is the first time for that.
Yeah, it is.
It
but this is one of those interviews that we sat afterwards just working through our entire lives.
Right?
Because of what we heard. It was so monumental.
And
it was just amazing.
Who is this we're talking
This
about?
is Chief Jeremy Pell
I remember
from the
this
White River Township Fire Department.
Yes.
And Sheriff's Office.
Yep.
And his dog, Rosie.
Rosie,
I think it
yeah,
was.
I
Yeah.
think it was.
Just, man, what
Amazing.
a leader. What a
Amazing.
guy. What a guy. And there's so much value in this interview that we just need to play it again.
Yeah.
And so it's been about a year. So we recognize many of you are new to the podcast and maybe haven't jumped that far back. I think it was like episode 20. It was in the mid-20s, somewhere like that, right? About a year ago. And so we're going to just play that interview portion. So hopefully you can find some value in that today too, because we talked about so many things that are just timeless.
That
really.
one was full of good information.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to jump over and we're going to talk to Jeremy Pell again.
Round two.
Round two. So you guys enjoy. Let us know how this hits you.
Yeah.
What you learned. And
Respond
we'd love
to
to
it,
hear
yeah.
from you. And if you think of somebody like, oh, you need to hear this, share it with them.
Yes, for sure.
So we're going to jump over to the interview. You'll have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. We have a special guest today.
We sure do.
Let's chat with him. Chief Bell, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time and sitting down and chat with us.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me. This is kind of humbling. I don't do this very often.
No? Well, we are thankful that you took the time to come and chat with us. So let's start. Let's give a little backstory about you. Tell us about you, where you come from, your family. Just give a little heads up about you.
Most of my family originated in Brazil, Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and what I remember of my childhood was living in Martinsville. I basically grew up in
Okay.
Martinsville, moved to the south side of Indianapolis when I was in high school, and graduated from Southport High School.
Okay.
Yep. And pretty young, I started in the fire service.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually worked at the Greenwood Schwinn Shop. I don't know if either of you are old enough to remember that, on US 31 by Dairy Queen.
I'm a transplant, so I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's probably before I moved here too. So.
Yeah, loved it.
Very cool.
Love working in a bike shop.
Okay.
As
That's cool.
a teenage kid. I mean,
Yeah.
much better than flipping burgers or
Right.
Right.
cleaning, or got to work on bikes.
That sounds like
That's
fun.
cool.
Yeah. When I was there, I had one of the guys I worked with was a volunteer firefighter here in White
Okay.
River Township.
Okay.
And he said, "Hey, I think you would really like that." And I fell in love with it immediately.
Really?
That's
Yeah,
cool.
Immediately.
That's awesome.
Well, I've been doing this for 33 years now.
Okay.
Very cool.
Or how long did you volunteer?
I started at 19 years old.
Okay.
And back then, you couldn't get hired until you were 21.
Okay.
So I worked as a volunteer, got hired within a couple of years as a full-time firefighter at the city of Noblesville.
Okay.
But I've remained a volunteer, which is part of my story. I relate differently than other people do because I remember coming in and you did it because you loved it.
Mhm.
You didn't show up at the firehouse to train because they were paying you $20 an hour. You showed up for free because you loved doing it.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And I continued that. Actually, I've continued it through my whole career, whether it's volunteering with my dogs
Mhm.
as a search and rescue canine handler, church. That's just what my family and I do.
Mhm.
So you show up where you feel like you're bringing value, where you can serve, where you can, things that you just love. That's where you show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, I would say that what drives me is I'm a huge Andy Stanley fan. And
Okay.
he did a podcast, and it was Discovering God's Will. And he said, as the mission's clear, the options are fewer, and the decisions become easier.
That's good.
And my mission is one day I'm going to meet God, and I want him to look at me and say, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Mhm.
So if I look at what I do through that lens,
Mhm.
then everything else is going to fall into place.
Right.
I'm going to support the people around me and my mission in the fire department. I'm going to do everything through the lens of, does it make them safer? Does it have a positive impact on their life? Does it save a life? Does it save property? So that's been what has driven the professional side as well as the personal and volunteer side of the Pell family.
Mhm.
Right.
My sisters are very similar. I have a sister that's 10 years older than me, and I have a sister that's 10 years younger than me.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. And same thing. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Lori, for, oh gosh, I better get this right. It'll be 28 years in September.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thanks. We have 2 boys together, and they're 5 years apart.
Okay.
They're 21 and 16.
Okay.
Okay.
And it seems to be the theme through our family. We don't always get it right, but
Right.
Mm-hmm.
we try. We want to make a difference.
Okay. So you're
That is
passing on
cool.
that service, showing up with that passion for the service. Your boys are doing the similar things.
Yes. Yeah. What we've tried to do as parents is just lay that good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
If I keep it simple, then again, the rest of it will fall into place.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
The 3 things that you just talked about, Andy Stanley talked about. When did you come upon those, and how did that help? Prior to that, was there a lot of struggle of trying to figure out what that looked like for you? Trying to figure out how to move forward to what you wanted?
Oh, it was tremendously difficult. There are a lot of chapters in my life that I wish I never would have gone through. I
Really?
understand it better now
Mm-hmm.
and can take those lessons and
Mhm.
turn them into something wonderful that can help somebody else.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really tough. I didn't pick up that lesson until I was back here at White River Fire Department as a fire chief and nearly forced to my knees, just, really, really tough times and saying, God, you got to help me out here.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
why the heck am I here? And,
Right.
why would you put me here just to fall?
Right.
Right.
And just bits and pieces. Good mentors.
That's
Just-
awesome.
Yeah. And a podcast here or there,
Mhm.
reading a book,
Mhm.
going to church is just, these little, I wish I could give somebody the magic formula,
Right.
Right.
but I can't because it doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The closest I can come is can't do this alone, and I need help doing it
Right.
from God and people that He puts in our path.
Right.
And that's just my story. That's just how I do it.
So mentors, it sounds like mentors have been a huge thing for you. And I'm a huge proponent of mentors because I just think that they help us build who we are and the things, especially when you're at your wit's end. I mean, God places people in our lives for different reasons, right?
Right.
How long have you had a mentor?
At least 20 years. But here's the interesting part of it is if you would have asked me 20 years ago, who is your mentor? I don't know that I could tell you what a mentor was.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's just the fact that there were people in my life that I could pick up the phone and call, or I could walk into Chief Sanford's office and say, Brian, I don't know what to do. And he would walk me through it. One of the things he told me, which was just incredibly impactful, is it was when I was at Warren Township Fire Department. We were merging with the Indianapolis Fire Department, and I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, talk to me about it. And we talked, and he said, I can't give you the answer because only you know what the true answer is. I mean, you need to do what's best for yourself and your family, and that's going to be in your heart. I can give you the pros and cons. That was mentoring.
Right.
That was so much more impactful than sitting down with a journal with another guy and say, okay, it's time for our mentoring session.
Right.
It didn't work that way. I'm struggling now on how to repay that and set that up for other people. So I start by being accessible and open, and Brian taught me to just sit and listen and look somebody in the eye and set aside what you're doing. And I guess it comes back to what you originally asked is I want to serve through my actions, understand the concepts, but not make it this artificial, I'm checking the box.
Right.
I want to do the things that God wants me to do. I want it to be impactful. I want it to be through my actions and make a difference.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. So you've gone from volunteer to chief in, you said you've been in the fire for 33 years?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your role as chief right now at White River.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit to that because I think this is very important.
All right.
Is I've hit every rank in the fire department.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And that's not always the case.
Right.
Okay.
And I think it would be very difficult to do my job as a fire chief, which at its core is I'm serving the men and women of the department if I didn't understand what they went through.
Right.
Right.
So in my role today, that's what I do. My job is to serve the men and women of that department and give them every single thing they need so that when a 911 call comes in, they can go out with the confidence that they can save that life. And
Absolutely.
it happens much more often than people realize in White River Township. When I started, we did about 650 runs a year.
Okay.
Last year, we did 4,400 runs.
Holy smokes.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
how much do you have any idea how much the population has shifted? Like as far as like how many people are in White River Township now
Yeah.
versus then and now?
We're redoing our website, and we probably touched it 5 to 8 years ago, and it said 26,000 people. And this last census, we're up to 52,000.
Holy smokes.
Wow.
Doubled.
Yeah, you asked me, part of my job, I'm the CEO of an organization,
Yeah.
but of a servants organization.
Right.
And we have a multi-million-dollar budget. We have 52,000 people, 26 square miles. We have 78 full-time employees, and we've got about another 20 part-time employees. It's a big deal. It is. It's grown a lot.
It has. And so you've been at in your current position for how long?
14 years.
14
which
years.
is unusual for a fire chief.
Really?
We're not subject to the political changes in a fire protection district like a city is. A city has a new mayor, and they have leadership changes and new department heads, and I fit much better into this, being a more merit-based qualified position. I was hired through a merit process based on my education and my experience.
Okay.
I fit a lot better in that. I don't want to be in politics.
Yeah.
I know I have to understand it, but the Jeremy Pell approach is what we're doing today.
Right.
It's relational.
Yeah.
if you're an elected official, you're my boss, and I respect you, and I'm going to give you everything you need to make a good decision to help our department grow, so I can give the men and women what they need
Right.
Right.
to make the department, well, to save a life. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What I was going to tell you, you were asking about the department and how I've seen it change. Teeny tiny, just truly a volunteer fire department. I was preparing for our budget this year going into next year, and I looked, and where we used to be little White River Township with 52,000 people, if you just gave us the title of a city, we'd be the 17th largest city in the state of Indiana.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
I had not a clue.
Yeah. That's part of my job. Coming back to your question, hey, Chief, what's your job? I never want to lose sight. My job is to serve the people in the department, give them everything they need. But it's also preparing budgets and talking with the community. And I plan public safety for 52,000 people. I coordinate with the sheriff's department and the Greenwood Police Department. We've started a canine SAR program. We've started an active shooter response program that was the first in Johnson County. We brought together all the departments to participate in those programs. We have added a fire-based ambulance service with 3 ambulances and hopefully a 4th in the future, so that we have 100% control of the continuity of care and 100% of the insurance payments go back into serving you and your family better.
Wow.
That's cool.
That is
Coordinating
cool.
with the district board and elected officials, that's what a fire chief does. Now, be a little transparent here. The conflict for Jeremy Pell is, I'd rather be in the firehouse.
Yeah.
I so desperately want the men and women of the department to know that, but I'd really much rather have my time and go out and connect with them, that leadership, by walking around or even just being back on a fire truck. I don't think that's where I'm intended to be right now.
Right.
Right.
I think that there's a plan that is much higher than us,
Right.
and parts of it we know, and most of it we don't. It sure feels like I'm where I'm supposed to be right now.
That's awesome.
Right. That's cool.
Congrats.
So in that list of programs and things that you've listed, you don't just work with the fire department. You mentioned earlier before we hit record that you're also working with the police department. Tell us a little bit about your role there.
Once you get into public safety, most people just get immersed in it. Our careers are not supposed to be our identity, but it's really hard when you live in the firehouse and you do this kind of work, and it's so emotional. I thought I would be more effective as a fire chief if I understood the law enforcement side of it.
Okay.
So I applied to Johnson County Sheriff's Office. I went through their full reserve academy, which is about 175 hours, and I worked the road. No, I work as a regular reserve road deputy with police powers, and I chose that route rather than having special police powers as a fire investigator. I chose the route to go through reserve academy because that's what would make me more effective. And think about the active shooter incidents we've all read about, and I started learning about it and realized, wow, none of us can respond to that alone. That's not a injured person. That's not a gunshot wound or a stabbing. This is an incident. We have to coordinate law enforcement, fire, EMS, 911, emergency management, reuniting families.
Right.
Man.
The only way that I can do that effectively is if I understand what the police officer needs. And we can do what's called unified command. We can sit in a vehicle or a command van together like the 3 of us are doing, only the conversation is, hey, where are your officers? Do they need a medic with them? Can we get into this part of the building and start getting people out? Those are the life-changing decisions in White River Township that I want to be as effective as I possibly can be.
Wow. So tell us about the active shooter program that you initiated recently.
Yeah, here's the big change is we don't know what we don't know. And our society wasn't used to dealing with that. Israel was. They were used to terrorist attacks, and
Right.
and active killing incidents. We weren't until Columbine.
Right.
Right.
And it's gotten worse since then.
Right.
And there's a really powerful picture from Columbine, and it's one of the students that put a sign up that said, I don't even remember what it said, need help now.
Mhm.
And what happened is one of those shooting victims was dying and ultimately died because we were doing things the old school way, going in and clearing room by room, and it took hours.
Mhm.
Wow.
What we do now, and we do that in this community, is we have a rescue task force approach to it where we take 2 police officers and 2 firefighter medics, and we go into a warm part of the building. So the building's not secured yet, but we
Right.
know that that incident is in maybe the gymnasium.
Mhm.
So
Right.
we put these police officers and these medics together and say, we're going to go in as a team, front guard and rear guard, and we're going to get out as many victims as we can while the rest of those police officers keep that threat confined to the gymnasium.
Gotcha.
That's the game changer. So we're in there in minutes
Mhm.
rather than hours.
Wow.
And then
Mhm.
we've got a policy that is consistent with the sheriff's office policy and the Greenwood Police and the Center Grove Police.
Right.
We train on a regular basis. We have individual first aid kits with tourniquets. So the care has changed, but also the response has changed and the working relationship between the agencies have changed so that we're all using the same terminology.
Has it been, I mean, I'm just curious because you've gone through a lot of training and recognizing that it'd be helpful for you to be aware of their processes, right? So then you went through and now you're on the backside of it. Have you seen the great benefit of being able to bridge those 2 gaps now? Because I don't know how many people have done that, but I'm just curious with your original assessment of the situation and now you've done it, what kind of benefits do you think it's truly been that you've been able to look at it from both perspectives?
The benefits are incredible.
Really?
Yeah. And this is one of those things you can't learn from a textbook. You can read it in a textbook, but you won't
Right.
fully appreciate it. I'll give you an example. We had we think he suffered a medical emergency and drove into a pond.
Oh, well.
It was the year before this winter.
Mhm.
It was witnessed. We had a crew member in street clothes jump in and try to make a rescue.
Oh, wow.
The sheriff's department showed up. They're the dive team. They're getting ready. I showed up because it's a coordinated response. And one of the divers looked at me and said, "Oh, Jeremy, I'm glad to see you. Hey, will you monitor my radio traffic so that I can get my dive gear on?" Because I've got a county unit number. I know the language.
Right.
I know what they're I know what
Yeah.
they're listening for. He could focus solely on doing that, knowing that even though I'm working as a fire chief this day,
Right.
I can switch to the law enforcement channel and say, hey, this unit is getting ready. I'll let you know when he goes in the water.
Mhm.
I don't. You can't just pluck a firefighter and in a half hour teach him how to use the radio
Right.
and that be effective. It
Right.
has to be a coordinated response.
Huh.
Yeah.
Now in this community, you guys will get me going, and I won't be quiet.
You're good.
Good.
In this community, we've gone even one step closer, and you see it right in front of your eyes when you look right across the playground at the school. Is the White River Township Fire Department has partnered with Center Grove Schools, Center Grove Police, and the Sheriff's Department to put 2 and Bargersville Fire Department to put 2 fire stations on school campuses.
Yeah.
Now think about that for a second. Is fire stations need to be in population centers with good travel corridors.
Right.
Where do you put schools? Population centers with good
good
travel
travel.
corridors.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes all kinds of sense.
So we've put our fire headquarters in Station 53
Yep.
in front of Pleasant Grove
Yep.
and
Yeah.
Middle School North.
Yep.
And recently opened Station 254 with Bargersville Fire Department. Johnson County Sheriff's Office has an office there.
Yep.
Center Grove Police Department and an ambulance. So we've got an engine. It's actually a multi-purpose ladder with pumping water, an ambulance, sheriff's department, and police department on the high school campus with
Right.
high school, middle school, elementary school, admin building. Now that not only improves your response and has already saved a life. We
Really?
had a medical patient. We were on the scene within about 90 seconds.
Wow.
Transported them downtown, and they walked out of surgery or walked out of the hospital after surgery. A
Good grief.
true 100% safe. But that model also serves as a deterrent because
Right.
someone that wants to attack a school is a coward.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do it with a police officer, an ambulance, and a fire truck in the front
Sitting
yard.
in the front
It's
Right.
those kind of things that just motivate me incredibly
Right.
and are blatantly obvious to me that no way I'm doing this on my own. I can't pull that off.
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
God is faithful and honors prayer of the people that serve him and serve others
Mhm.
and works in ways that we don't understand. And I'm just trying to be part of that. I'm
Right.
just trying to
Yeah.
have an open heart and an open mind.
Right. Well, and he's definitely giving you a lot of wisdom in the process of you trying to bring this together and in your training as well, and to bring that together.
It will sound to some people like ridiculousness, but I can tell you and look you in the eye that many, many years ago, I had a very difficult childhood. I've had a rough path. I said, God, please, please give me the wisdom that you gave Solomon. Give me the strength you gave David, and give me the peace that you gave Paul. And I don't ask for much. I just want to be able to serve the people around me and have enough to go to Walmart. And if I want to buy something, buy something.
Right.
I get a kick out of buying a fishing pole or
Right.
something to work on the house. That's all I'm asking for, God.
Right.
Yeah.
And sitting here talking to you and looking backwards, it's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
That's
He gave me
awesome.
wisdom. He gave me the ability to lead others and serve others.
Mhm.
And my family is blessed. We
Yeah.
we don't want for anything.
Mhm. That's awesome.
Yeah. My mind is boggled by the complexity of coordination that you guys pull off.
Right.
As a church, we've talked about security policies and some things like that. And this is just a small little building
Right. Yeah.
in White River Township.
not
I can't
52,000
imagine.
people.
Yeah, and I can't imagine like you're saying, all the different agencies that come together. And yeah, it's clear that God has given you the gifts, the ability to bring leadership to this. I mean, and so I have one more question for you related to your passion, because clearly your passion for what you do has been overly abundant in our conversation. But I understand that you have an even bigger passion related to your dogs.
Yeah, almost an obsession. But anyone that's in public safety has to have a way to get their mind off things.
Mhm.
I live and breathe this. As fire chief, I'm always on.
Right.
And I go
Yeah.
home. I still know that phone's going to ring, that radio's going to go off,
Right.
and I have this little. My mind is a strange place.
Yeah.
I have this little decision matrix. Obviously, if I'm called, I go. But
Right.
if there's a firefighter hurt, if it's a church or school or a fatality, or if Chris and Jason would look around and say, "Where's my fire chief? My fire chief should be here." Those are the calls I go on. I make
Right.
sure I go on those.
Mhm.
So I need a way to turn on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that has been through my dogs. I've trained dogs for over 20 years, and it started with telling my wife, hey, I'd like to have a dog so that there's one here in the house when I'm on shift 24 hours, just to kind of keep an eye on you. And it was a dumpster fire. I made so many mistakes, and it worked, and I was grateful for it. But I would call my wife at night, and she's, I hate this dog. Since then, we've kind of got it squared away. In the last 10 years, I've been working with one of my mentors, Leah Snyder, and have trained search and rescue dogs.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where we are today. Is we've added a canine search and rescue discipline to the White River Township Fire Department. I've done most of it on my own. once I adopted Rosie and realized that she really had a good shot at passing the tests and becoming certified, I went to the department and I went to my board of directors and gave them a letter and statistics and resume and said, I would like to do this. Will you please pay for me to go to a class?
Cool.
And they've paid for 2 classes. And Rosie came back as a certified land cadaver dog and a crime scene. And we just got back Sunday night from training and certifying her as a water search dog.
Oh, cool.
That is cool.
You said that in probably about 5 minutes, but I'm sure that the class and the time that's put into this is like a long amount of time, is it not?
Oh, it is.
I was
It
gonna
is.
say, that doesn't sound like a simple thing.
So there are different paths to it, and I'll make this brief. You can go buy a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and it's bred to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's trained. And when it's a year to year and a half old, you show up and you go through 6 weeks of training,
So
5 days a week, 40
Right.
hours a week,
Right.
and you walk out with a certified dog. That's how police departments do it. It's between $15,000 and $25,000.
oh wow. Okay.
The model we do is we adopt a dog, and they're our pets, and we do it in our spare time. We do it as a volunteer.
Okay.
And I've taken that model and seen the potential impact it can make in White River Township.
Oh wow.
So I've taken that passion. I thought it would be a shame to waste that passion and not use it for the department, because I was really surprised when I put together the request to take her to school. And the classes we've done have been between 45 and 55 hours in a 5-day period.
Okay.
Okay.
Pretty intensive. And I looked, and in Johnson County in 2019, we had 24 calls where someone went missing in Johnson County alone in 1 year.
Okay.
Yes. And I didn't even count the drownings because my mind wasn't on that.
Right.
But these are people that have early stages of dementia. They wander from home
Okay.
or just by pure chance get out of the assisted living facility.
Hmm.
Kids with autism spectrum,
right.
and they wander away.
Mm-hmm.
There were 24 of those calls in 1 year.
Okay.
24 calls that we could have taken a dog and put them on that trail and potentially made a difference.
Absolutely.
Now, many of them had very good outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them didn't.
Mhm.
But a dog can go out and run a 1.25 mile trail that's anywhere from 4 to 16 hours old and nail it. And in 15 minutes, it's over.
Right.
Why would you not spend, literally, it's just been a couple $1,000s because I adopted her from the pound. Somebody tied her to a tree. I did all the basic training myself. I've paid for all the equipment, all the treats, all the medical care.
Right.
And the department's paid for the training.
Right.
That's awesome.
Now, and they're very supportive.
That's
Right.
good.
Yeah, and the trauma of the person who's wandered off, that you're saving so much trauma on their end by ending that quickly.
Yes.
I mean, that's just
Yes. And I'm sure you both know in your professions that we're getting smarter about our mental health.
yes.
Mhm.
And one little detail I've learned is kids on the autism spectrum are attracted to water.
Oh.
And they're also afraid of authority figures
Mm-hmm.
because it's not what they're used to.
Right.
Big men in uniforms. All right. So what's the traditional model? We put big men and women in uniforms with big trucks and cars and all these flashing lights in an area with a child that's scared to death.
Right.
And we search until we run out of daylight. And then we search a little longer. And then we say, okay, we'll get back at it in the morning.
Right.
And that child wanders out when all the chaos dies down
Mm-hmm.
and is attracted to a body of water.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not the best model,
Right.
but it's what
Right.
we knew.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what is the right model? Set up a perimeter outside of where that person wandered away. Stage at ponds. We've got plenty of those around here.
Yep.
Low key. Put a dog on a trail. Kids love dogs.
Right.
Rosie's not a bite dog.
Yeah.
Rosie will come up with her tail wagging and lick you and look for a treat.
Yeah.
And that's where that passion carries over to mission
That's
We're
awesome.
gonna save somebody someday.
Absolutely.
Right.
I don't know when. Maybe it's not even me. Maybe it's the program and it's some young kid
Mhm.
20 years from now that says, I want to be a dog handler.
Right.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
man. That's cool. I think there's a little bit of irony there, though, that the way you want to unplug from all that you do is to train a dog to take back into that exact same.
I told you my mind is a strange place.
But I mean, going back to one of the first things you said was where you see a need and your heart and your passion, God has given you gifts and talents to be there. That, like you said, I just want to be able to, get my fishing pole at Walmart
Yeah.
out of this.
Right.
And, now you've got a dog that goes out on the water with you and, is companion, friend, and coworker.
Yeah.
And that's just,
That's awesome.
it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
huge. So, question for you, because a lot of the listeners of this podcast are in nonprofits, from churches to charity organizations to small businesses to, large corporations running some, different things. So, one of the things that I kept hearing as a theme throughout everything you said was, how can I lead if I haven't walked in their shoes?
Right.
If I don't know what they're going through. So what advice would you give to leaders in whatever area of life they lead in terms of that, of, just being present in another person's shoes? How would you talk to somebody about that?
That is a tough question.
And that's my job.
Yeah. Excellent. You're very good at
Why,
it.
thank you. Thank you.
Countless books that have been written on this. Here's what I think the difference is. I think it's loving other people as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you can start there, realize nothing else in this world really matters nothing really matters unless you have a love for other people.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of this life, I'm not gonna think about the fishing pole. I'll sure think about my dogs, but it's gonna be my wife and my kid and men like you and people in the department that I really cherished. And when I'm done, I'm gonna think, sure hope I did them right. And I'm going to want to meet God and have him say, hey, well done, my good and faithful servant. And if I could get that part right, then I think I can get the leadership part right. And that's what I would tell the people at the nonprofits. And we get so wrapped up in the books and in the budgets and in the policies. And sometimes we do lose the forest for the trees. And it just really comes back to taking care of another human being.
That's so well broken down too.
Yeah.
Just the smaller things in life and just recognizing what truly is important.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One moment at a time, one step at a time is what I'm doing beneficial to another person. If I can get that right, I really think the rest of it fall in place for the most part.
Yeah.
I'll mess it up, but I'll try to come back and and
It's-
recenter myself.
There's
and
some growth curve there, right?
Yeah. Oh, are you kidding? I don't know that I would call it a curve. How about a cliff?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There are times that I very humbly had to look at my fire department, at my brothers and sisters, and say, I'm so very sorry. I got this wrong. Will you please forgive me? I promise you I will do it better.
Right.
And that's not a reflection of me. I think it gets to the heart of your question. How do you lead better? I make a mistake, and I want to try to make it right, and I want to serve people. I want to love people better.
Right.
And you admit it. I mean, it's not just making the mistake. It's admitting the mistake and then recognizing where it went wrong and then trying to fix it. Like, there's a process there. Well, I love to hear your heart with that, because there is leaders out there that make mistakes and they don't admit it, or they just go on fixing it. They don't take the pause of, hey, look, I'm sorry I screwed this up. I'm going to make it better. Just know. that it is what it is.
Our world teaches us that the strength of a human being is in standing up and being right.
Mm,
And we fight, argue to be right.
right.
And my deep-seated belief is that there is strength, and even more strength, in doing your very best and admitting that you don't know it all and understanding your weaknesses and asking somebody to help you with those weaknesses for the greater good.
Yeah, that's
That is strength. It takes a strong man or woman to stand up and say, I just don't know. I
Yeah.
just don't know what to do. God, will you please give me assist here?
Yeah.
Hey, brother, don't let me mess this up. That's one of my catchphrases in the office. Again, they probably get sick of hearing it. I'll walk into somebody's office and say, please don't let me mess this up. What do you
Right.
think? I don't know.
that's
Not sure I would do that if I was you, Chief. Like, thank you.
That's awesome.
Man, I don't even know how to
Yeah, I was gonna
respond
say,
after that.
Man,
My
I'm
goodness.
like, that was in my mind, that was gold. Because I'm so thankful that we have people like you serving this community who have that mindset, because that is something I think that runs at our core of who we are and what we're trying to do to serve the people we're serving.
Well, listen, the other thing that has hit me lately is that it transcends the issues we're dealing with in society.
Yes.
So if I can make our little corner of the world better, then again, I've done what I'm supposed to do,
Right.
what I'm created to
Mhm.
do. And taking that approach transcends the other issues, the political issues and the social issues and the arguments. And we all read it. We all see it on our phone and on Facebook every single day. I try not to let that be the issue. I try not to let
Mhm.
that be the focus of my mind. It is some days.
Right.
I get frustrated.
Right.
This is much easier said than it is done.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't, it's really not my issue of what your religion is or
Mhm.
your sexual orientation or your hobbies or your career. My issue is how do I take care of you?
Right.
And I'm so incredibly grateful that God created me to serve other people, and I can do that. And it doesn't matter to me what the person is or
Mhm.
who they are
Right.
or, any of those social issues.
Right.
Right.
If one of you call 911, my mission's clear. The
Absolutely.
options are few. The decisions are easy. We show up and we put our life on the line to protect you.
Hmm.
And no newspaper or podcast or political report is going to change that
Right.
for me.
Right.
Right. What a life lesson we could learn from, like you're saying, the mission is clear of the fire department that we're there to save a life.
Mm-hmm.
Your options are few. We either respond, we don't respond, we put our life on the line, or we don't. And so the decision's easy.
Yeah.
And when we superimpose those issues in people's lives as their identity, it clouds everything.
That is a perfect
really
way of
does.
putting it. It clouds it.
Yeah.
We have good people in Johnson County, Indiana, in the United States of America.
Absolutely.
And
We do.
at times we become very, very clouded.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
So
lose,
true.
And-
then we lose it. We can picture, a cloudy day,
Mhm.
hiking in the woods, and that cloud drops down and the rain falls. And now you don't see a mile in front of you. You see 10 feet in front of you, and you're
Mhm.
clouded. And where do
Yeah.
I go? And you try to take the right steps,
Right.
but they're not focused on the destination.
Mhm.
And you come off the path because I love that metaphor because it's so cloudy.
Yeah, that was good.
And our identity at the root is you're a human, you're a person that we can love.
Yes.
And I'm for you. And
Yeah.
man, I absolutely love that. So as we think about the fire, our emergency services, how can the community best support you guys?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, first off is pray for our responders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be cliche, but it's tough.
Mhm.
And there are men and women in our department, and Greenwood, and Bargersville, and the city of Indianapolis, that you think about the incredible amount of stress that they've been on.
Yeah.
And then you take that stress and add a pandemic to it. But these are men and women that see children who have died, and families, and parents,
Mm-hmm.
people that have lost their homes, and maybe that's what keeps me in focus a little bit. And I look and say, "Wow, that last night's news wasn't that big a deal. This family's going to have to figure out where to live."
Right.
I worry about them. I worry about their mental, physical, and emotional stress. I listened to a podcast recently, and the presenter was Craig Rochelle, and he said, "We're not tired. We're fatigued. We're not burnt out. We're fatigued. It's just call after call after call." So I think that's the first. I think prayer and spiritual and emotional support is the first great step, and it is always uplifting to our fire department when we know that people care and appreciate. Typically, you get the complaints. That's the one that picks up the phone.
Yeah.
New Hope has been really good about just sending a card. We've actually had several churches that have sent a card and said, "We're praying for you," or a note, or cookies, just to say, "Hey, we appreciate what you do." So that's a good next step. And then I would say, in my fire chief role, we are grossly behind a community that has 52,000 people in it. We still have part-time firefighters. We have the same 17 firefighters on duty each day that we had 20 years ago.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So just a little bit of understanding and the support in trying to grow the department to keep up with a community that has an interstate, half a dozen assisted living facilities. I don't know what we're up to, 10, 12 schools, mega churches.
And some of the fastest growing communities in Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So succinctly, prayer.
Yeah.
Love and support.
Appreciation.
For the stress and of what we do, and just knowing we appreciate it. And then the support out in the community when the men and women of the department say, "We need this tool, or we need some more people." That would be a dream come true for me.
Right.
That's awesome.
But regardless of what happens, myself, but more importantly, the men and women of the White River Township Fire Department, and I can speak for the men and women in the Sheriff's Department and Center Grove Police and all the ones that I serve beside, are here for you.
Yeah.
You pick up the phone. What a magical thing. You pick up the phone and call, and no excuses. We show up.
Right.
And we care for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so true.
How would somebody wants to show appreciation to the firehouse, or something like that? How would they contact you guys? How would they catch up with you?
All our contact information is on the website.
Okay. Which is?
You go, it's www.wrtfd.org.
All right.
And you can call the office, and you're going to get, one of the things that I'm really happy about with this department is we're high speed and progressive. We're still your fire department.
Right.
You can literally, anybody out there listening to this podcast could literally show up at any of our fire stations today. Say, "Hey, my kids would like to see a fire truck," and I guarantee you will be welcomed with open arms. So you can call Danielle or Tammy and say, "Hey, we heard Chief Pell's podcast. Can we come see the firehouse? Or we would like to bring a note by. How would we do that?" And their response will be, "We will be glad to help you with that." And you bring
Absolutely.
it by the office, and then it'll go from there. We'd coordinate getting it to another fire station
Mhm.
or getting it to one of the officers that would drive it around and say, hey, look, somebody brought us cookies. I apologize to whatever church did this, but they asked, it may have been New Hope, asked for our roster and then wrote note cards to every single member and just said, hey, we're praying for you. And I still have that one sitting on my desk.
That's cool.
That was a neat thing.
That's cool.
Cool.
That's cool. Well, Chief Pell,
Well,
thank you
yes,
for
thank you.
showing up, and
Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your service.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this.
I
You know, we're all blessed, aren't we? We're all fortunate.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's great knowing that, like you said, you pick up the phone, and there's nothing that we have to do to convince you guys to have our back.
Right.
That you've got it before we even pick up that phone.
Yeah.
And thank you.
That's
for-
100% true. And
Yeah.
thank you for what you do. It is incredible to think what this world would be like if each one of us didn't try to make our little corner of the world nicer.
Right.
Right.
So you're part of that story.
Well, and I would hope, most of the guys at the house will have made it this far through the podcast at some point, right?
I hope so.
And so, guys, gals, we just want to say thank you to
Yes, thank you.
you for all you do, and for supporting this man on the other side of the mic. And you guys are amazing in our community, and we are grateful for you.
That is for sure.
So, Chief Pell, thank you
Appreciate
again.
Yep.
Thank you.
And give Rosie a treat for us.
Okay, I will.